So a little bit about myself. My name is John Sebas. I'm Chief Technology Officer of Open Source Election Technology Institute. That's an organization that has a mission very similar to what Audrey articulated about verified voting in terms of working at technology, policy, and improving elections. What's different about us is we mostly actually build the election technology ourselves. So that's really the goal, is to build open source election technology for U.S. elections. And indeed, part of what we do is building remote voting solutions. So I'm going to tell you straight up front most of what my talk is about in 1 minute, and then go through a few slides and pose a question for discussion. So straight up, before we do slides, here's my message. I'm talking about blockchains for digital remote voting in the United States. Okay, so internet voting, whatever you want to call it. But I call it digital remote voting. So a blockchain is really the wrong thing to be using for any kind of voting, and I'll explain why very briefly. So a blockchain is a distributed digital ledger. That's a term of art. It's a technology thing. It's a distributed digital ledger for recording cryptocurrency transactions. Okay, so digital ledger technology has been around for a long time. Blockchain is a more recent variant. It's tuned to the problems of cryptocurrency, and elections lack most of the problems that the particular kind of ledger a blockchain is. Jeremy showed you that flowchart. Do you need a blockchain? That's a flowchart that you use to decide, do I need a digital ledger that does all the stuff that a cryptocurrency needs? In most cases, the answer is no, because blockchains have 3 essential features that make them not useful for elections, but great for money. But here's the plus message that I want to get to today. However, digital ledger technology with different variations, not the way you do it for cryptocurrency, is probably very, very useful for elections, including for remote voting. But we need some real problems. So I'm going to talk about a problem the digital ledger technology can address in elections, and to do so into use cases. So that's my deal. So much for my speaker notes, and let me ask Gerard to address this, advance the slide. So what are election problems? What's a blockchain solution for? Keep going, Gerard, please. So this, what you're seeing right here is exactly just what I said before in writing, to say that blockchains, specifically as used for cryptocurrency, are not the solution to any election problem. However, if we advance the slide, we can see a little bit about why I say that. So what do we mean when I say a blockchain has essential characteristics that are important for digital money? You can see that on the slide. I won't read them, but the general idea is, in a cryptocurrency blockchain, anyone can append to the chain, anyone can join the network and become part of the network, and anyone can view the contents. That's not useful for elections because ballots aren't money, and that's not useful for elections because election officials have to have central control. That's the law. Next slide, please, Jared. So since that kind of digital ledger technology, cryptocurrency, is not useful for elections, what are some variations that are useful? Well, to answer that question, we need specific use cases about specific problems in elections today. And here's 2 use cases. In voter registration, we need immutable records. We don't have them today. If we're doing digital remote voting, we need immutable storage of those ballots that are returned digitally, sometimes called a digital ballot box. We don't have that today. And there might be other use cases. Jared, could you advance the slide, please? Some people have talked about publishing cast vote records and vote tallies and election results and all that. That's not really a good third use case. Digital signatures will probably do that. That's not a situation where there's multiple writers. That's one entity, a county elections office, publishing some numbers. So if you'll advance the slide again, Gerard. So I don't know what number 3 is. There might be others, but here's 2 that we can talk about if you'd advance the slide once more. Okay, so here's the problem. Here's a real world problem. So in election technology today, data is very vulnerable. It's vulnerable to tampering by technology people who are working for election officials. Now, as several speakers have noted, election officials have the ability to do all sorts of nasty stuff and mess with elections, sure. But in addition to that, and by the way, that is an accepted threat model of election law. It's accepted, and there's countermeasures to deal with those risks. We don't have countermeasures to deal with computer people messing with the data behind elections. And it's not just system administrators, network administrators, database administrators. It's all those people, but also the technology of the tools they use and the supply chain of that technology. And it's not just that, it's also nation state adversaries who can acquire the capabilities of these techie folks via malware, phishing, bribery, and so forth. So the real question here is, how do you store critical data and protect it from tampering by these threats that are credible, proven threats, as we've now seen in the past few election cycles? If you'd advance the slide, please. Okay, so I'm here to say that a different type of digital ledger technology can meet this challenge in at least 2 use cases, but with a different type of digital ledger technology, making different choices than we do for blockchains for cryptocurrency. I won't read the slide, but you can see a little table here. And if you want to know more, you can get the slides and we can talk later. But there's very different choices about how you operate a digital ledger tech for elections, and it's proven, and ledgers like that exist today. So if you advance the slide. So we're not going to use blockchains. We are going to use digital ledgers. How's that going to work? Well, a digital ballot box is one of those cases, and so are voter records. So Jeremy mentioned that before. So we've already developed proof of concept technology at OSET for how the introduction of a digital ledger into a voter registration system can create immutable storage for voter records data in a way that prevents them from being undetectably tampered via all the threats that I just mentioned. So that's a big deal. And you can do exactly the same type of immutable data storage for digital ballots that have been returned by a digital voting system or an internet voting system or a mobile voting system, whatever you call it. Because today we have this problem. Digital ballots, like paper ballots, have to be under the election official's physical control. They can't be vulnerable to tampering by IT staff or nation state adversaries. If we did without this type of data protection.
Hey, John, I just got to give you, you got a 2-minute warning.
Great. So if we did without this type of protection, it would be like having paper drop boxes with keys given to all the computer geeks and letting them copy the keys to anybody they want. So that's something that's really helpful. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. Next slide. When I say necessary, I just explained that. Not sufficient means there are many other security issues in digital voting. I've listed them here. Other speakers have listed them as well. And by itself, digital ledger technology does not solve these problems. That would be ambitious. Nor does it mitigate the risk to a level that's commensurate with paper ballots, which is a reasonable goal. One more slide, I think. Right. So everything that I just said really boils down to, when we digitally automate parts of elections that are done with paper, we need to retain the processes, procedures, and adherence to legal requirements that have been established for paper ballots. So I think a great question for discussion is, how can blockchain, or really digital ledger technology, be injected into the technology of elections without requiring legislatures to rewrite election laws? And if you could advance the slide one more time, I think we'll be done. There we go. Build it and they will come is not the way that we're going to get adoption, because actually, if you'll advance it one more time, if we have technology that doesn't fit into the way people are running elections, we're going to get election officials, too long didn't read, too busy running my election. So we've got to figure out how to make that fit with practice, law, and regulation. And I think that would be a great discussion topic. I'm done.